From the pages of MikeHuckabee.com, where you know I'll never push critical race theory, but I will teach you to think for yourself, let's take another look back at the week that was. And to have my thoughts and insights, hot takes on the news of the day, and Bible verses delivered right to your email inbox, just sign up for the always free Huckabee newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. Well, I was glad to see Attorney General Merrick Garland's plan to treat parents at school board meetings as domestic terrorists, getting the furious backlash that it deserves. That's what I was glad about, the backlash, not his idiotic plan. In a memo that was issued on Monday, Garland expressed concern about what he called a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators. And he announced a 30-day plan to combat the reported problem. This will include the FBI working with U.S. attorneys across the country and coordination and partnership with local law enforcement. Now, Garland cited no examples of actual threats to justify this. He offered no justification for literally making a federal case out of these hypothetical threats, which are already covered by laws and are covered by police at the local level. Let's be clear about what this is: an Orwellian abuse of power designed to chill free speech, to punish political opponents, and ironically, to harass and intimidate. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis blasted Garland for weaponizing the DOJ by using the FBI to pursue concerned parents and silence them through intimidation, adding, quote, "Florida will defend the free speech rights of its citizens and will not allow federal agents to squelch dissent," end quote. His spokeswoman also called it despicable and un-American, and said that Florida law enforcement is perfectly capable of responding to crimes in Florida, and we have never heard the FBI suggest otherwise. However, disagreement is not harassment. Protest is not terrorism. That is, unless it involves rioting, looting, and assault, like some of the left-wing protests of the summer of 2020. Now, speaking of that, while the DOJ and FBI busy themselves with surveilling Trump voters and intimidating concerned parents and opponents of critical race theory, murders in this country took the biggest spike in history during 2020, up nearly 30%. Did you catch that? Murders up 30% last year. You can thank all your police defunding blue state governors, mayors, and city councils for that. And while the FBI is ignoring that, they're also doing pretty much nothing about actual violent terrorists and anarchists like Antifa, since, you know, they're on the left. Here's Congresswoman Nancy Mace in a hearing last week with the FBI's Assistant Director of Counterterrorist, Timothy Langan.
How many acts of violence or domestic terrorism has Antifa committed over the last 2 years?
Since we don't categorize Antifa, nor do we calculate or collate information regarding Antifa, that movement, we don't have that.
We don't have that. We've got reams of files on parents who object to critical race theory being taught to their kids in places like Loudoun County, Virginia. Not so much on those tattooed meth freaks in Portland or Seattle who tried to burn down federal buildings and build their own separatist compounds during the so-called Summer of Love. By the way, that hearing was titled Confronting White Supremacy, Part 6, examining the Biden administration's counterterrorism strategy. It pretty much tells us all we need to know about where the priorities really lie. All right, moving on to the Twitterverse, my take on the Virginia gubernatorial race. Democrat Terry McAuliffe said in a virtual rally with supporters that Joe Biden is unpopular with Virginians and he is a drag on the race. My response? So basically, having Biden campaign for you is like opening a new restaurant with Jeffrey Dahmer as your head chef. Next up, how about this viral clip of a nurse making more sense than any elected official or talking head on CNN on the idea that the unvaccinated pose a risk to the vaccinated?
Why do the protected need to be protected from the unprotected by forcing the unprotected to use the protection that didn't protect the protected in the first place?
Let's do a quick compare and contrast that nurse and the top elected official in our government, President Joe Biden. Here's a speech, or, well, it's something from this week.
Also, we've got state leadership here. Lieutenant Governor Julius here, Stratton, and the Pennsylvania, I'm from Pennsylvania. The Illinois President Don Harmon, and Jeff Isaacson, United Brotherhood of Carpenters, and Don Finn, IBW, and Robert Reiter, R-E-I-T-E-R, You know, if I can digress for just a second, last night I was on the television. I was on the telephone. You know, at any rate.
If you have any idea what the heck he was saying, would you please email me and translate that gibberish into English? All right, finally, a shout out to another unintentional comedian known as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada. Trudeau has started referring to the LGBT community as the 2SLGBTQQIA+, which reads like a password for your Wi-Fi router. But apparently it means two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual. I think we might all be described as questioning after reading that. One of my questions is, since there are at least 57 genders at last count according to these folks pushing this stuff, how can Trudeau be so bigoted as to marginalize, offend the other 46 genders whose initials weren't included? You know who figured out what this gender confusion and curious terminology is all about just a few years ago? Another Canadian and a real comedian, the late Norm Macdonald.
Do you know that you are a cis male? Have you ever heard of that term?
A cis male?
Cis male. C-Y-S-M-A-L-E. So what it means is that you are a man. You're born a man.
Well, as far as you know.
As far as I know. And you identify yourself as a man.
Yes.
That's a cis male.
Now, I don't understand. Where does that... Is this a new phrase?
Yes, it's a way of marginalizing a normal person.
No matter what you think about Norm and his comedy, no one can honestly say that he didn't speak his mind. And that's something we dearly miss from him with his passing. Well, until next time, these have been the facts of the matter. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.